Hey everyone. So in this video, we're going to tackle how to use Prompt Builder with Salesforce Flow to turn unstructured data into structured data. And the example that we're going to use for this demo is the lead. We're going to assume that we have leads coming in through our website that are giving us a lot of detail in their description. And maybe we want to take this unstructured data that says something like, I work on a farm, and turn that into something more structured. Like on our industry pick list here, we have a value of agriculture. So we could say that their industry is in agriculture and then actually report and chart off of that information, which we can't do from a description that just says, I work on a farm. So how do we turn this unstructured data into structured data automatically? We're going to first start by creating a prompt that can read that unstructured data and then categorize it properly. So we're going to go to the gear icon and then setup. And then we're going to search in our quick find box for prompt builder. And you do have to enable Einstein AI before you can access prompt builder. And you also need to make sure that you have the right licensing to use it. So if you don't see prompt builder coming up when you search for it, just double check those two things, that you have the licenses and that you have enabled Einstein. Um, and that's going to be the same way that you enable Agentforce. They're one and the same. If you haven't enabled Einstein yet, you're not going to see either of those pop up in your quick find. But in this case, I'm able to navigate to Prompt Builder right here, and then I'm going to click on New Prompt Template. It defaults our prompt template type to Flex. You'll see a few different options here, but Flex is the one that we want to use for this instance. And Flex is generally going to be your most ironically flexible uh, template type that you can use for the most things. And so our prompt template name, we'll call this lead industry categorizer. And then we'll tab over here to populate our API name. We can add a description if we want. We will go ahead and add an input, and I'm just going to call this lead, set our API name as lead. Our source type will be object, and our object will be lead. And then we're going to click next. And now we can start creating our prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this one that I've put together. And so this is saying, read the following lead description, and I'll actually add this in manually so that we can see that. So I'm going to go to my resources right here. And then since we just set lead as our input, I can select lead, and then I'm going to add the description field right here. And then these right here are just straight from our industry pick list values. So I just copied those out. And so I'm telling the prompt, read the following lead description, and then it's pulling this dynamically. And then based on the description, categorize the lead industry as one of the following best matching options, output exactly one industry and no explanation or description or extra characters. Default to other if the lead absolutely doesn't fit into one of these industries. So this may not be the perfect prompt, but we are able to test this in our flow builder and then come back and refine this. We can also test it right here in prompt builder, but we can see it both here and from the flow when we trigger it against specific leads. Another thing to note here is in our resources, you are able to pull in specific information from the flow as a source. So it assumes that a flow could be a source here. Or you can pull things in from the current user, which if it's being triggered by a flow, it would look at the running flow user, or the current organization, which is going to pull more system information. Now, we can also change from our overview. We can just read basic information about this template. We can change the model that it's using. So I'm going to leave it as the default, but just so that you can see how you could change this, we could switch it from GPT-5 mini to GPT 5.4 or O3 or O4 mini, or any of those models that are available out of the box here. So we're going to go ahead and click save for this prompt and just run with this as is. Now I am going to activate it so that it's available for me to use in my flow. And then we're going to jump back over to our lead here, click the gear icon, go to edit object. And you can get to the flow builder from a couple different routes. In this case, I'm going to the lead flow triggers, and then I'm just doing a new flow from here. But of course, you can also go just into your basic setup and then search for flows from the quick find box. But I'm going to click on new flow right here. And it's going to go ahead and pre-fill my record triggered flow with the lead as the triggering object. And I do want this to only fire when a lead is created, but we could do this when a lead is created or updated. In this case, we're assuming that they're coming in directly through the website with that information already populated. Um, and so we're going to do this as actions and related records. So from here, I'm going to add an action node by clicking the plus and then searching for action. And then I'm going to search from my prompt. So we called this lead industry categorizer, and I can just start typing that here and see it pop up right here. It uses the butterfly icon for our prompt builders. We'll select that. And then we can call it the exact same thing in this flow node. So even though we've already named that prompt builder, it's just asking us to name this specific node within the flow. And we're just going to give it the exact same name in this case. Lead industry categorizer, populate our API name, and then the lead is going to be the triggering lead. And then we just need to pass through that ID. And that way the prompt builder knows which lead to run this against. There we go. And then from here, we can go to update our triggering record as our next node. And this is going to be update lead fields. You can call this whatever you want. I'm just giving it a very generic name. And then what we want to populate is the industry based on the output from our lead industry categorizer. And so we're just going to grab that prompt response, and then we're going to save this, and we're going to call this lead industry categorizer as the flow. Okay. So now that we've saved this flow, it's not active yet. We're going to debug it and see what it comes back with. So the lead that we were just looking at was Miss Bertha Boxer. And so we give her a lead description of I work on a farm. And so we would expect it to output agriculture as the industry. But that may be somewhere where we need to refine the prompt. So we'll give it a test. We'll debug this against Bertha Boxer. And then we'll skip our start condition requirements because our start condition requires that she be a newly created lead, but we know that she already exists. So we're just going to force it past that point and then run this. Okay. And so we can see it made it all the way through our flow successfully. So let's go to our prompt here and we can see what it output. And our output was agriculture. Perfect. And then we can see it went and updated the lead and it set the industry as agriculture. So we know that this is successfully running. So let's go ahead and activate this flow. And then we're going to jump over to our leads and we're just going to create a brand new one from scratch. We'll call this Joe Schmo at Schmo's Motor Co. And then we're going to give Joe a description that says, I work on cars. And then if we save that lead, our flow should be running in the background. And then as soon as that saves, we'll see that the industry is set to transportation, which is accurate in this case. So now we can see those running. If we decide that it needs to be more specific, if it needs to have different industries added because we've updated our industry pick list or anything like that, we would just go in and refine that prompt. If we wanted it to not take very generic descriptions and look for something more specific and otherwise just output other, we would go in and just refine that prompt from there, and test within the prompt builder to get that output that we're looking for. And maybe sometimes you have to just toggle the model that it's using to get a different response. But this is working well. And that is a very, very basic introductory lesson on using prompt builder within Flow to categorize these unstructured data fields or a combination of unstructured data fields into structured data that we can now report on, filter on, group on, and chart by. So Thank you for watching. Bye.